They called him Riverboat Bob. He was drifting down the Colorado River that night, May 14, 2008. He looked up in the sky and saw what he thought was a plane without wings. The craft had a turquoise flame as it slammed into the riverbank 50 or so yards from Bob's drifting riverboat. It came down south of Las Vegas outside of Needles, California. Shortly after the crash, a flotilla of U.S. military helicopters came and carried the debris away. That is when Bob decided there was more to this crash. The next morning, Bob called into the radio show on KTOX, 1340 AM, along with many others from the area. He related his experience from the night before. Former Chief of Police in Bullhead City, Arizona, Frank Costigan, said the craft was a cylinder in blue smoke coming from the northeast headed southwest. It went behind a mountain and he waited for the crash, but it was silent. Hours later, David Hayes, owner of KTOX Radio, was coming to work when he noticed the formation of dark vehicles driving off the highway. The leader was a large truck with dome on top and long stretcher that reminded him of a stealth fighter. He made eye contact with one of the vans in the formation, and it began to follow him. He noticed it was parked outside his radio station later. Costigan did investigations for KTOX, and when he came in that morning he related his experience. It was finally solidified when Riverboat Bob called in with his story. Bob said after it crashed he tried to call 911 but his phone would not work, so he moved into the middle of the river to try to get reception. That is when he saw the 5 helicopters fly into the area. One had a crane attached to it. The helicopter picked up the oval-shaped object that was still glowing and flew away. The helicopters flew in the direction of Las Vegas. Interestingly, that night the Laughlin Airport was inundated with Janet planes. Those are planes that fly workers to the top-secret Area 51. They could not confirm that because no one was at the airport after 6 p.m. on that night. Also, there was a group of helicopters stationed in Henderson that year that were part of an elite team called the Night Stalkers. The Night Stalkers is a special operations force of the U.S. Army that gives helicopter and aviation support for general-purpose forces and special operations forces. The missions include attack, assault, and reconnaissance. They are conducted at night, at high speeds, low altitudes, and on a moment's notice. George Knapp, radio personality out of Las Vegas, did much work on the case for Channel 8 News, now a CBS affiliate. Later, Knapp believed the crash was of an X-37, one of a group of crafts that USAF and NASA have denied existed for security reasons. A forum on the site above Top Secret had one of Knapp's friends post the finding with thumbs up as to the investigation. It did not explain the blue flame that was shooting out of the crashing craft. Another poster on the same thread had this to say about the X-37. It wasn't the X-37 that crashed at Needles. The X-37B orbital test vehicle is only making its maiden space voyage now. Previous variants, the X-37A approach and landing test vehicle and the subscale X-40A technology demonstrator, were never capable of spaceflight. It is a real shame that George dragged the X-37 into the Needles story, tying two completely unrelated things together. The witness said he didn't see any wings or horizontal surfaces like those on the X-37 type vehicle, so it is pretty clear that's not what he saw, especially when you look at the flight history of the vehicle. The news media sensationalized the so-called secrecy surrounding the X-37, but it has been pretty much in the open for years with the exception of some of the operational mission details. By the next day, the mysterious X-Men came to the area. They were called that by the townspeople, trying to discover what the witnesses saw the day of the crash. Hayes said the men looked stiff, wore sunglasses, and appeared to be trying to clean up the area. Riverboat Bob, also known as Bob on the River or River Bob, became scarce, and when CBS News went looking for him later, he was laying low, and the only thing he said was, "I don't believe we were meant to see it." Political organizer Tony Fagan said one of them showed up the following day at an event she was hosting. The man came up, shook her hand, said his name was Phil, and proceeded to ask her if she was there when the call came in from River Bob. She answered yes. He proceeded to ask her if she knew what the craft looked like, how big it was, like he was grilling her. She said he seemed frustrated when she did not know anything. She also related he was way too clean-cut for the people that lived around there, and that he had military haircut. There seemed to be two views of this crash. One is that it was a secret military aircraft that crashed. That the X-Men were from the OST Office of the Secure Transportation, which is a division of the NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Agency, a part of the Department of Energy. which many believed was involved in the recovery of the craft, the other that it was a UFO that crashed, and the men that followed up were the mysterious men in black. Since there is no definitive answer, speculation is what we are left with. I found it interesting that most of the people on the forums I read were much more comfortable believing it was a secret government craft and the government had it under control. I guess that would make it easier to sleep at night.